order his new holy empire. And basically, then they'll have the whole thing wrapped up.
Have you heard of the concept of Maitreya?
Oh, yeah, many, many years ago. There are people who claim he's walking around here and there. And, of course, it's all a bunch of mind control and programming.
Okay. Now, how does the Merovingian bloodline play into this whole role?
Well, that was the mix between the Khazars, who were more of the reptilian Sumerian lineage, and the Celt/Magdalene lineage that merged in France and became the first Illuminati line as we see it today. That broke down, or became, as we have it now, into 13 ruling families, only one of which is allowed to be the head or the Pindar of the Illuminati. And for the last 800 years or so, that's been the Rothschild family. But what we're seeing now is that other families are trying to usurp that or take the power themselves, like the Windsors and the Romanovs. That's why Russia is getting as aggressive as it is again, because we're seeing a battle amongst the Illuminati themselves.
So they would have had a New World Order already if they weren't battling amongst themselves?
Well, you can say that they do have an agenda where they hope to have this achieved by 2012. That's the real reason or significance of 2012. It has nothing to do with the Mayan calendar. But think of them as a chairman, board of directors of this large corporation, and only one could be chairman. So even though they all work for the same people and have the same goals, only one could be the chairman of the board, and that's what they're trying to do.
Hey, Andre, you got a question? You're online still. Okay. What about Colt?
I have a question. Where does the Vatican play into the whole New World Order? What's the Vatican's role?
Very good question. Because back in, I believe it was 1213, the
Treaty of 1213.
Yeah, the British royal family, unable to pay their massive taxes to the Vatican, made a deal with them and said that they would transfer all of the assets of the royal family to ownership of the Vatican forevermore, under the condition that the royal family administer and manage it forevermore. And so that's what happened. That is why, if you notice, after every G8 meeting that occurs, the president always goes to visit the Pope and give him a rundown of what's going on, because theoretically the Vatican owns the United States, because it was part of British territory.
Now, what was it, in 1999, I think, the Queen of Elizabeth amended our Social Security taxes?
Yeah.
I don't know the exact year on that.
Yeah, there's a lot about that. In fact, what people don't realize is that the U.S. Postal Service is owned by the Bank of England, which is owned by the royal family. And the United States is a corporation. It's not really a country.
Correct.
And so, theoretically, everything here is an asset of the British Empire.
Which is then an asset of Vatican
right.
control.
Exactly. Right.
So when the Queen of England has jurisdiction over our Social Security tax, that kind of tells you something, doesn't it?
Yes. Well, even in the IRS special law, it says in there that every citizen of the U.S. owes money to the British royalty. If you go and read all the tenets of the IRS. So no one questions
something that was created within the United States, supposedly, when an outside force like the Queen of England has jurisdiction over U.S. policies, then the American people should definitely research and question how the Queen of England has the right to adjust or eradicate our Social Security, our tax.
Absolutely, and the problem is that these things are just not taught in school, and so people don't know about it. And the way they have children so mindless these days, no one even thinks about it or questions it. So if you think what's going to be like in 20, 30 years when most of the people who had the old way of schooling are gone, who's going to be around? Just the ones who've had this mindless schooling without any information that's valid, and they won't know what real history was.
Stewart, I was listening to a radio show based in Wisconsin yesterday, and they were doing a study based off of our curriculum today.
Yes.
Versus, let's say, China. China's already adjusted their curriculum based off of more art versus memorization. What do you make of that?
Well, it's a mindset. China thinks differently, or I should say East Asian personalities think differently than Western personalities. If you look at their language is art. It's calligraphy. It's not letters and words the way we know it. So they learn better that way.
The radio show talked about how China saw the future as far as memorization is not of great importance today, but innovation, where the arts curriculum is going to be of more importance than memorization, memorizing dates, history, things like that.
Yeah.
And innovation isn't something that's really being taught in America anymore.
Well, I look around a lot of places. I mean, I travel extensively all the time. And I would have to say that in Western Europe, and especially in North America, there really is no education. It's simply babysitting children from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, and basically filling them with nonsense.
And brainwashing them.
Basically, yes, absolutely. And there was something called Education 2000 that was big in the 90s, where every country in the world had to teach the same information about history, math, science, etc., so that all children everywhere would just be equal. They would not know any more than the other. I had clients who were teachers, who were principals of schools, and they would tell me that they would get this report every September of what they had to teach, and they were just appalled by it, but they were powerless to change it.
And they don't encourage critical thinking at all. I was kicked out of high school at 17 because I asked too many questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a little brother who just turned 17, and he's experiencing the same problems right now. He was brought to the principal's office earlier on today because he questioned his teacher about 9/11.
Oh boy, that's not something you do in school without being a target,
Right. So to me, the whole purpose of the educational system isn't to educate, but it's to brainwash the kids into being good, obedient workers and nothing more.
Oh, absolutely.
Follow the system. That's it.
Yeah, I call it the Borg. They're becoming the Borg. All robotically connected to central intelligence that tells them what to do and when. They have no self-identity. And if you notice, most of the young people, especially the males, let's say between the ages of 16 and 35, most of them have no ambition to do or be anything.
At all.
Yeah. And I see this all the time, and many of them just, think the world owes them something, and they just lay around, do nothing, and have no expectations.
Would you say that the main goal is world socialism and totalitarian government?
Well, yeah, and you know what? We already have it.
I agree. We've said that on the show before, that the New World Order is already in place, that we're just waiting for some solidarity. That's about it.
They're waiting to create the events I mentioned so that the people will want the solutions that are imposed on them.
Would you say that microchipping the population is the main overall agenda?
Well, that's part of it. You know, these days the satellite transmissions and the mind control technology is so superior, they don't even have to chip you anymore because they can just tap into your frequency and change your brain waves, and it's like your whole body becomes a chip.
Which is what Brzezinski talked about in Between Two Ages, and that book was written almost 40 years ago, and he talked about that within the future, all they would